My name is Monique Sullivan, and I will be presenting this session. This is session 3. We've already done 2 other sessions. And this is being presented by School Improvement and also the data team. Go to the next slide. So today's webinar, under the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA, the Maine Department of Education, DOE, publishes state, district, and school report cards every year known as the ESSA dashboard. And this is session 3, and so we're going to focus specifically on Maine's model of school support. Next slide. So again, this was mentioned at the other 2 sessions, but this just kind of gives you, we're trying to create transparency. We have to publish specific data that is required by the ESSA statute, but we also provide some more data just to help with transparency. And we've had a lot of views with the ESSA dashboard. I'm sure that's gone up a little bit because that was from November to February, but we had 44,000 views. The ESSA dashboard is also used both internally for the DOE staff and also for the public. It is a public-facing site, so anyone can view the data or that information that's on the ESSA dashboard. Next slide. So again, the last 2 sessions, the first session focused on just what's in the ESSA dashboard and all the different components of the ESSA dashboard. And the second session focused on specifically on the data and why the data is so important, because we use the data to run what we call Maine's model of school supports. And this is the identifications. This is the identification or the state accountability system that is required under the ESSA statute. And again, so if you can see, actually just go back one more, Shelley. So all of the blocks, so you can see the snapshot, those are all things we kind of highlighted in the last 2 sessions, but we're going to focus on the bottom one today. So now you can switch. So the ESSA dashboard, again, it's Maine's model school supports, and it has the overall school-wide status across 5 indicators. So next slide. And this looks like a busy slide, but what you want to make sure you do, so when you go to the ESSA dashboard, this is what's going to come up, and you're going to see all these different blocks. And to get the information about Maine's model school supports, again, this is the accountability system for the state that is required under the ESSA statute. And so, but the Maine's model school supports is based on all the data that is in all those other sections of the ESSA dashboard. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to, before you go to the box or the little tab there that says Maine's model school supports, you're going to want to make sure that you're in the right year. The most current year we have right now is 23-24. The data is always about a year behind just because of all the accountability measurements that go into the accountability model. You're going to want to make sure that you, again, select the year. It defaults to 23-24. And then you're going to want to make sure that you select school. If you have it on statewide or district, you are not going to get what you want, because Maine's model school support is based at the school level and not on the school administrative unit status. So you want to make sure you go to the school, click on that, and then you'll do the select name. And this has all the schools that are in the accountability model, and you'll select the school that you are interested in. The years of data do go back to 2017-18, but our school profiles only go back to, I think, 2019-2020. So the data is not necessarily the same as the accountability year. Okay, move next slide. Thank you. So again, just a real quick overview of Maine's model school supports. Maine's model school support is run every year, but identifications are made every year for TSI or Tier 2, every 3 years for CSI Tier 3, and every 6 years for ATSI Tier 1. And a school will remain in identification status until exit criteria is met, or the school moves to a higher or lower level of support based on the current identification cycle. And there is a lot more detail that you can find about this on our in our plan, which is available on the Maine DOE website. Next slide. So again, just a quick summary of the identification statuses. There is a CSI, which we sometimes also refer to as Tier 3. Schools operating Title I programs with all student populations experiencing challenges or emerging in all indicators. So if you are a school that does not operate a Title I program and you have all student populations experiencing challenges, you will not be identified as a tier or as a CSI. All high schools, so regardless of your Title I status, of a school's Title I status, all high schools with graduation rates below 67 will be identified as a CSI school. And then we have ATSI schools or Tier 1 schools. These are all schools, Title I, non-Title I schools in the state with at least one student population experiencing challenges or emerging in all indicators. I get a lot of questions about, well, I'm not going to be identified because I don't operate a Title I program. This is not based on that. It's all schools. So regardless of your Title I status, you could be identified as an ATSI school. And then TSI, these are all schools again, Title I and non-Title I schools with one or more of the same populations consistently experiencing challenges for 3 or more years in the same indicators. Okay, next slide. So when you select your school, I did block out some of these. I just want to stress that I blocked them out for this presentation, but none of this information or all of this information is public available information. There's no personally identifying information on this. There's no student information on this. So I just blocked it out. I blocked it out for this presentation, but you could share this information because there's nothing on it that would release any personally identifying information. So right now, the most current we have right now is 23-24. And so I went to that and then just and when you click on, if you want to know more information about each of the indicators that are used for Maine's Model School Support, then you can click on the question mark up there at the top, and it'll give you an explanation of the 5, and it will tell you the 5 indicators that are used for Maine's accountability system. So it's chronic absenteeism, which is K-12. Progress in English learner proficiency is K-12. English language arts and academic achievement is for all the grade levels, and I'll come back to that in a second. Academic progress is just for, we call K-8, but it's really only 3-8 because they're the only ones that have assessment. And then mathematics, academic achievement is for all levels, and academic progress is just for the K-8, or we refer to as the elementary level. And then high school graduation rate is the 4-year and the 5 to 6-year rate. I do want to just mention that for the federal or the U.S. Department of Education or the federal statute, there's only 2 levels that we use. There's the elementary level, which is K-8, and then there's the high school, which is 9-12. And I know we have some schools in the state that kind of span those. So just keeping that in mind. And obviously, like high school graduation rate wouldn't be an indicator for an elementary school, and academic progress wouldn't be an indicator for high school. Okay, I think that's everything on this slide. And then there's just a brief explanation there at the top underneath Maine's Model School Supports. Again, it talks about the indicators that are used to determine a student or a school's progress toward meeting state standards. Okay, I think we can move on. Again, there's a lot of information on this one slide or one page, so I just wanted to go back up to the top there. You can also select the year. You can select the I for more information. This gives you the definitions of different things. You can provide more information about each of the areas in the menu, which I have on the next slide. And then you can also go and select different years, which will give you, I think it'll go back to 1920 or 2019, 2020. You can also select the menu. So there's a lot of information embedded in this one slide here, or not slide, or this one page. And then in the purple, I kind of highlighted, if you click on these tabs, there's a list of all the schools and their support tiers. And the tier 3 supports, or the CSI supports and funding, and then the exit criteria for each of the identification statuses. So there's identification criteria, and then there's exit criteria. Tier 2, there is, or TSI, there's no exit criteria because those are identified every year. And then the ATSI, there is exit criteria for that, and also for CSI. I think that is it. Yeah. So again, yeah, go ahead. So if you click on the definite, or that I tab, or the I, this will come up, and you'll select if you want to know more information about each of those areas. You can click one. I clicked assessment, and then on the right-hand side of that slide, it'll give you more information about what assessment means and what is taken into account for that, for assessments. Next slide. So again, if you go to the menu slide, or go back up to the top where the X is menu, if you click on the menu, you can get all these get all this other data about that particular school, students, teachers, academics, student. This is all information that's just specific to this school, if you want to know more about that. Next slide. And then here is kind of more information about what rendered the identification status for that school, or not identification status, but lets us know how the school is doing overall. So overall, it shows the level of achievement. So you have emerging, developing, meeting, and excelling. And that is really tiny, but basically emerging is that not all the student population, that the school as a whole did not meet the did not have less than 10% for chronic absenteeism. Developing means that some of the student populations did, but not all of them did. So that would be developing. Meeting is that every student population was able to meet the state expectation, and excelling is that all student populations were exceeding the state expectations. And then you can see how this school particularly rated. They are meeting expectations for academic progress, but they are not for chronic absenteeism, academic achievement, English language arts, academic progress in math, and academic achievement in math. So if I were going to look at this, I'd be like, oh, we definitely need to work on some math. And we know that chronic absenteeism is something that is affecting a lot of schools in the state. Okay, now I'll actually go back to a second. So there was no graduation on this because it's an elementary school. There was no English language proficiency because this school did not have enough students to be able to merit that indicator being counted in the model. You have to have 10 or more students to be counted in the model. Okay, next slide. And this just gives you a little more information. If you hover over that particular icon, it'll bring up how that school did. And this one for academic progress in English language arts, all the eligible student groups had at least 100, which means they met the state expectations. It says eligible student group because you could have more student groups, but if they didn't have 10 or more, then they did not get counted in the model. And then the next slide. This is another example. If you hovered over the academic achievement English language arts, then it has emerging, and this means that no eligible student group met their annual target. So then they're emerging. And you can do this with all of the icons. And that is it. So if you have any questions, we are here to answer any of them. Paula. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, Paula.
Thank you. I was just wondering, what are the student groups?
So we have a separate we have a separate school profile that we send out to schools, but it depends on the student groups. But I'm trying to think about Penny, you might be able to jump in on this one or remind me, but it's the all student population, which is all your students, and then it's white, it's students with disabilities, students with multiple races, African American, Asian, multilingual, Hispanic,
Economically disadvantaged.
economically disadvantaged. I forgot. How did I forget that one? Yeah. Yeah. And some of them don't show up because you don't have enough students to merit that, but it really depends on the school. But there's like 8 or 9 of them, I think.
Yeah, basically it's the race ethnicity you'd see on the regular report card, plus the students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged,
students with
and
disabilities.
I'm missing one.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking right now because they're listed and I never can remember all of them.
Maybe 504.
There wouldn't be 504. No.
Okay.
The one that's missing is English learner.
I've got it here.
Yes, English learner.
It's all students, white, economically disadvantaged, children with disabilities. I think they're called English learners in the plan, but we refer to them as multilingual, Hispanic, Latino, American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander, Black, African, and 2 or more races.
Okay, so not by gender, and you need at least 10 to qualify for a subgroup? Or a student group, I should say.
If you look at your school profile, you could see them, but it won't be calculated into the Maine's model of accountability because there's not 10, but it would be in the ESSA dashboard. So if you went and looked at it, you might see the student data there, or you might not, depending on how many students there are. Usually we don't put anything more than, it doesn't get counted unless 10 or more students were a part of the assessment.
Great, thank you.
And that is it. So if you guys have other things you need to do, please go about, you can always reach out to me with any questions that you have as well.